It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Jason Snell has the week off. He's traveling down to New Zealand. So Dan Morin fills in with Andy Ihnatko and Alex Lindsay. We'll talk about the Supreme Court arguments heard this morning. We want to protect Section 230, Apple's secret AI event, plus their less than secret gaming event. And yes, you've been waiting for it all this time. Windows comes to Apple Silicon. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 858, recorded Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Leave the knife in. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Melissa. Over 10,000 clients worldwide in industries like retail, education, healthcare, insurance, finance, and government rely on Melissa for full-spectrum data quality and ID verification software. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. And by 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer, and the pod cover is the ultimate sleep machine. Go to 8sleep.com/twit to check out the pod cover and save $150 at checkout. 8 Sleep currently ships within the U.S., Canada, the U.K., select countries in the EU, and Australia. Thanks for listening to this show as an ad-supported network. We are always looking for new partners with products and services that will benefit our qualified audience. Are you ready to grow your business? Reach out to advertise@twit.tv and launch your campaign now. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news or snooze from Apple. Mr. Snell has the week off, but new proud papa is here. Dan Morin filling in his Six Colors cohort. Hello, Dan.
Hello. Good to be here. I'm glad I can, take Jason's place, but only temporarily. No one can replace him permanently. Believe me, I've tried.
Jason will also be out next week. But next week, Dan, we're not going to make you fill in. We've actually got an interesting person for next week whose name escapes me. Who is it, John Ashley?
Let's leave it a surprise.
A surprise? Okay. Well worth tuning in for. Leo supposes, not knowing for sure. Hello,
it's Liza.
It's Liza
Sorry.
Minnelli? No, it's not. Hello, Mr. Andy Ihnatko. How are you?
Hanging in, hanging on.
Good.
That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah. Welcome. Good to see you from WGBH in Boston and Points East. Also from the Bay Area, Mr. Alex Lindsay. 090.media and officehours.global. Hello.
Good morning.
How are things?
They're doing well. I'm just back from Pennsylvania.
Ah, nice. Yeah, Mr. Snell is in New Zealand, right, Dan?
Yeah, that's right. He's all the way on the other side of the world. That's how far he had to go.
Wow.
Just to get away from all of it.
Just to get away. Well, we'll be glad to get him back in 3 weeks. But for now, I think we have an excellent substitution. I was going to ask you, Dan, your latest book, The Bayern Agenda, excellent read. You have a very good reader for these.
Oh, thank you.
And
Victor Bavine.
Do you pay Victor to do that, or is it doing it out of the goodness of his own heart?
No, I mean, he is paid by the publisher of the audiobook.
Ah, nice.
And he has done all 3 of my books from Angry Robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Angry Robot is a publisher. So okay, then it's really not. I was going to ask you if you'd listen to the Apple AI voices and whether you would consider those instead of Victor. But since you don't pay him, obviously not.
Well, and I have listened to the samples that they had on their website, and I mean, good as they are, I that's a complex thing. I don't think I would do it for me because I like supporting audiobook narrators. I think they're great at what they do.
Thank you. Good man.
Yeah, that's right. Can't just replace people who talk on the internet with robot voices.
No.
People talking on the internet, let me tell you, is unduplicatable.
The robot voices are pretty dang good, though. I got to say.
They're good.
But not as good as Victor.
I've been watching more and more YouTube videos and realizing they're using a digital voice for it. It's like a style now. Like there's a style of, and I think a lot of times it's English with a second language for the person who's making it, and they throw it in. But I like all the little like 5-minute crafts or whatever. Those are all this digital woman that does.
Yeah, but that's because of TikTok.
Also,
it might even be the
also
TikTok lady. I wouldn't be surprised if they reused her voice on YouTube. I don't like that voice.
And also because this is all like almost bot generated content where they will flag, oh, here's a website, here's a web article we found that we could transform without paying the original author into YouTube short content or TikTok content. Let's just like do sort of like a bunch of screen grabs from the video, make that into a slideshow, and then just have an AI like recite what was written underneath it. It's like that's the it's going to get a lot more difficult to reject those things when the AI voices become like really, really, really good, because oftentimes I will be thinking, damn, like how do I make tofu like in a microwave or whatever, and I'll see a video and it looks like, okay, well here's how to make exactly what I was looking for, how to make tofu in a microwave, and I'll say, Tofu is very easy to make in a microwave oven. Okay, click next one, because this is I have no idea what's going to happen to me, my microwave, or my kitchen if I actually follow these instructions.
Here from Netflix is the woman whose voice.
But it can buy a lot of nice.
Beep. That's the woman who's the TikTok voice, and I feel kind of bad because in the Netflix, you can keep going with it. Oh, you missed it. My
childhood was difficult. I wasn't like the other little girls. I want to be where the people are.
I hate this voice. In the Netflix synopsis of this, meet Amelia, the woman behind the famous text-to-speech feature, speaks out about her catapulting rise to fame after years of failed voiceover work. That's great. The very first comment is, not many voices make me literally go into a rage, and this is one of them. And I'm kind of with her.
Want to see them dancing?
I don't. It's that ing at the end. I don't. I
think the interesting thing though is
down a job. 911. What's your emergency? You don't.
Actually, you know what? Maybe this is parody.
I am a real person.
It's gotta be.
I think it's parody. Okay, never mind then. What was I going to say?
That was funny.
First of all, happy Mardi Gras. It's Fat Tuesday.
Pancake Tuesday, yes.
We're going to a little Mardi Gras festivity in Petaluma tonight at the, they call it the Block, but it's just where a bunch of food trucks gather. So I guess I'll be having jambalaya and laissez le bon temps rouler at the food truck in downtown Petaluma tonight. So happy Fat Tuesday to all of you. Also, this morning I was up early because this was the morning where the internet was on trial at the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And it's unclear whether we won't know till April if the internet has won or not. But this is the case Gonzalez versus Google. It's a sad story. The family of a woman who was killed in an ISIS attack in Paris in, I think, 2015, suing Google because they say, well, you recommended ISIS videos and you're radicalizing people. I don't think they even had evidence that the people who killed their daughter had anything to do with those radicalizing videos on Google. Nevertheless, the case has wound its way up to the Supreme Court, and I spent a fun morning listening to the Supreme Court justices try to figure out how the internet works. Actually,
it's a series of tubes.
Yeah. My favorite quote was Elena Kagan. Justice Kagan said something like, what did she say? These are not the 9 greatest experts on the internet sitting here in front of you. No kidding. But they asked some pretty good questions because they're really trying to figure out, for instance, they acknowledge Google has, and the Section 230 protects them from the ISIS videos, right? They take them down, but they don't have to. They're protected there. But here's the question. If Google puts a thumbnail of an ISIS video on a page, any page, Are they now publishing the video? They're actually asking this question because they made the thumbnail, which of course they didn't.
They're also investigating the idea of, does the fact that they are specifically recommending videos to specific people, does that give them, does that make them not a distributor but now an editorial publisher, and that they are picking and choosing what people should see? There's it's one of those horrible situations in which that's a really good point, and the Supreme Court should be considering that. While I'm thinking, oh my God, please don't touch Section 230. Please don't touch.
I was
because you know how bad this is going to come.
I was encouraged, despite Justice Kagan's comment. I was encouraged that they seem to actually understand. In fact, one of them even said, "Wouldn't there be a huge consequence to the economy if we in some way dismantled Section 230?"
Any change to 230 could it's one of those things like you have no idea. We have a term in production a lot of times. Something's not quite right, and someone will say, "What should we do with it?" We're just like, leave the knife in.
Leave the knife in. That's right.
Leave the knife in.
Always bad when they pull the arrow out. Always bad. Never where it never.
It may look bad right now, but it could get so much worse so quickly. And I think that the unintended, we kind of know what we have right now, and we even have the tinkering that's already happened with the laws. That I think that pulling at this one is really complicated, and so much of the foundational work of everything that's on the internet is so tied to it that I think that changing it in almost any way could cause a lot of trouble. I do think that's really interesting. I think that when it did open up Google and Facebook, and when they started and Twitter, they avoided it for a long time of taking anything off. They could downgrade it, they could do other things, but they didn't want it to block anything because they were afraid that it was going to come up of now they're a publisher. As soon as they start taking things off the internet,
well, that's what Section 230 protects them for. In fact, it allows them to moderate. Allows me to moderate. Now, there's two things that 230 does. It doesn't. It protects you against liability for something somebody publishes in our IRC, and it protects me for liability from me taking it down. They can't sue me for blocking their speech. So it has both directions, and I think it is very important. We wouldn't have a chat room, we wouldn't have a Discord, we wouldn't have comments. I wouldn't have a forum if there were no Section 230, because we just get sued all the time.
Right. And I think that it's been astutely pointed out that the smaller organizations or anyone wanting to do something new are the ones that get hit the hardest with this, because GDPR is a huge problem. Unfortunately, it hasn't been used very much. Like, it hasn't been prosecuted that much. But the when you build a new website and you're a small company, you really have to think through all those things now, because you could theoretically get put under really, really fast with the level of fines that are really aimed at the Googles and the Facebooks. But the collateral damage is potentially very high. So far, they just haven't enforced it, which has allowed a lot of companies to kind of find their way to it. So
even if you don't get fined, the cost of basically
defending is prohibitive.
Well, no, not even defending. That's exactly, Dan. Like, you have to have a compliance officer basically to head off these problems before they exist, and the idea that a lot of these startups are on a shoestring anyway. You have CEOs who are sleeping in the parking lot overnight. They can't afford to take on that extra expense. So this is why it's like so many of the proposals to reform the internet and give more responsibility and more control back to the users, like the idea of making sure that small publishers get paid by Google, get paid by Facebook. A lot of these things only wind up benefiting the organizations that already have an immense amount of control, because oftentimes these are the only people who can afford to play in this brand new swimming pool that the courts are creating. Even these lawsuits about again, let's have Facebook and Google pay like small newspapers and small magazines for reusing their content. The people who are instigating these lawsuits are News Corp. It's like these huge international communications conglomerates that have basically bought up every single newspaper, every single TV show, every single publication, and they're the ones who are going to benefit from this. It's not going to mean that your local newspaper is now going to be able to survive again. It means that the people who put them out of business will be able to get a little bit more money.
Yeah, it's a real Rube Goldberg machine almost, right? Like, you change one thing and the ball starts rolling. That knife comes out, your silverware is all knocked over. I don't know, whatever you set up your Rube Goldberg machine to do, but it's got like the consequences are just unforeseen, right? Like, so much of the internet is built on kind of just this agreement, this tacit agreement that everyone's had. It's like, this is the way it's going to work. And it's amazing that it works as well as it does. Yeah. Not to say it works perfectly, but as well as it does.
It's wishing on a monkey's paw. It'll give you what you asked for, but not what you wanted.
Well, anyway, we'll pay attention. There'll be another argument tomorrow. There's another case that is against not only Google, but Twitter and Facebook, but does not, according to experts, attack Section 230. We're trying to get Kathy Gellis on tomorrow for This Week in Google. She wrote an amicus brief for Tech Dirt on this case, Gonzalez versus Google, today. So we'll be very interested to see what happens. Obviously, it'll affect all of us. And I do, I have to say, listening to the justices, you never, if you've listened to Supreme Court arguments before, you can't really tell how they're going to rule because they'll play devil's advocate. They're really trying to tease out all of the issues. So you can't assume, but it sounded like they kind of understood the issues and the consequences of it. And the attorney for the plaintiff at one point said, you don't have to worry about all these lawsuits. They're not going to happen. And I think one of the justices said, we can't really, that's not how we work exactly here. Is saying, hey, we're going to change the law. We don't have to, people aren't going to pursue it. It's not a big deal. So
my tangential claim to fame was I used to, as a teenager in an early 20-something, I worked at Harvard Law Library, and one of my jobs was ferrying around books to the faculty office. So I delivered books to Elena Kagan, as well as a lot of other people who are like professors at Harvard at the time. Elizabeth Warren, Lawrence Tribe. I brought the books on a little cart around, handed them over.
Hello, Mr. Tribe. Here's a book for you. Little did he
really
know.
helped me out later in life.
Yeah. Actually, Kagan was quite, I thought, astute in her questioning. We'll just wait and see. Both the administration, President Biden, and Senators Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley are encouraging the Supreme Court to strike down 230. So we got a lot of arrows coming our way, but let's hope. Cross your fingers. Yesterday, I did something kind of fun. Actually, I did it on Saturday. I put Windows on my MacBook. Ooh, how exciting. It's now official. You can use Windows on ARM in parallels, at least right now, although I imagine VMware Fusion will catch up quick. But parallels right now and Microsoft has officially acknowledged it, is an authorized solution for Windows on ARM on an M1 or M2 Macintosh. And I'm here to tell you, it runs pretty sweet. It's pretty nice. I've run Windows on ARM in the past, and, for a long time it was in beta. In fact, it's just now, I guess, official. And it really wasn't a very good experience because so many, even of the Microsoft programs, didn't run. That has changed a lot. There are a number of Windows machines that are running ARM, and Microsoft's put more attention into it, and it works pretty well, I'm happy to say.
So the exceptions don't really affect your day-to-day operation, because I was reading through it, and I know that the transition to ARM is still like ongoing.
Yeah, it's not done.
It's not
that's
like
for sure.
Yeah. So is the compatibility list pretty good? Like the reason why you decided to install Windows on an M1 or M2 MacBook must be because you needed to get certain solutions, certain apps that you couldn't get on the Mac. Have they made sure that you can get those apps running on ARM for Windows?
I didn't look at a compatibility list. I probably should. Everything but I'm using generic stuff like Microsoft Office. That all works. All the Microsoft apps work. Edge works quite well. I'm sure Chrome works quite well. But yeah, you should obviously check to see if that one thing you want runs. What's nice is it runs pretty snappily. It does not feel like it's slow. It's not virtualized. It's something a little smarter.
It seems like, this is probably, the sort of growing pains of Windows on ARM is probably one of the reasons why we haven't seen a replacement for Boot Camp.
I don't know if we ever will. I think
we may not. Apple may not have it. It may not be in their interest, or they may just not have enough of a audience for it. If most people can get what they need done via parallels, the biggest problem with things like parallels and Fusion has always been running games. If you want to run games on the Mac, and that's never been a great solution for that in the first place. And Apple would very much like you to believe that they care a lot about gaming and that you can just run those games natively on your Mac as soon as the game developers get around to actually making them.
Yeah, and if you want to run a game in this, don't, because it doesn't support DirectX 12 or OpenGL. So games are right out. But what I think it's primarily for, and one of the things Parallels does very nicely, is something called coherence mode, which is if you had that one Windows app you just have to run, you can run it in coherence mode where it's just a window next to your Mac Windows, and it's just running. And that's not too bad. Unfortunately, I had to buy a license to Windows, which at $200 hurts my heart. But I had to see if it would run and how well it would run. I'll keep it on my. I ran it on an M2 MacBook Pro with 24 gigs of RAM. It took 6 gigs. That was the automatic setting for Windows, and it runs fine in 6 gigs. So, so
it's not something you necessarily want to run on your 8 gig.
I wouldn't. This is one argument. If you're going to run Windows, this would be one argument to get more RAM in your Mac or any virtual environment. It'd be, that's a good reason to get more RAM but it runs pretty. I was surprised how snappy it was. I was able to play solitaire just like that. It was great. No problem.
Free cell. Let's not lose our minds with free cell, but solitaire.
I think that most of the Windows apps I have either wouldn't work at all because they're really heavy, but a lot of them are glue. They're little things that we're using, and we have to have oftentimes a little B-Link or some kind of Nook or something that's running it. And I think those kinds of things will be great. Just to be able to have it on the Mac and have it running on those things. And Again, educational price $4.99, regular price $5.99, entry level. If you're going to turn it into something, isn't that bad if you're just going to use it as a PC? Even if you're just going to flip it over, and if you're going to run both of those things at 16 gigs, it's probably for smaller apps it could work really well.
Ebucell had a good suggestion in the chat room. He said if we turn the lights down 20%, we'd be able to recoup that $199 that I paid for Windows. So if you can, John Ashley, just turn the thermostat down, turn the lights down a little bit. We got to make that money back somehow.
Put on a Manavani record.
Yeah. Little mood music. Windows subsystem for Android does not work. Windows subsystem for Linux does not work. The sandbox does not work. And virtualization-based security does not work. DirectX 12 is not supported. 32-bit ARM apps are not supported. Yeah. So the list is probably pretty long of things that won't work. And I bet you most of the pro apps that you use, Alex, would definitely not work, but
none of them will work.
Yeah,
but again, we have a lot of little things that we use as glue as little controllers, and right now we're using very inexpensive little PCs that aren't that much less than just having a Mac Mini. And to be honest with you, I'd rather have a Mac Mini that I knew I could repurpose later at some point, even if it was $100 more expensive.
Yeah. Most of the people that I know that. Most of the people I know that are running Boot Camp or running Windows on Mac hardware are administrators, people who they just prefer the Mac hardware to do all their work on. And even if they're almost solely administrating Windows and Linux workstations. And so a lot of the tools they need to maintain that network and to serve their users really is Windows only. And they have to speak the language of the people that they're serving. So it's not necessarily, I mean, I think for most people, if you already spent $1,500 on a Mac laptop, probably the app that you want is there's either a direct analog or the direct app available on the Mac. It's not 1989 anymore.
Yeah, that's another good reason not to bring back Boot Camp. Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking it's very. I mean, this is sort of a deja vu, and almost. I mean, when I started writing about Apple in the first place professionally, it was during the Intel transition, and when you could first run Windows on your Mac, right, because of the processors. And I think the environment's changed a lot since then. In those days, it was like, oh, see, now you can get real stuff done. You can run all these things that, you otherwise couldn't run. And nowadays, like Andy said, there's either an analog or the things available, if not on the Mac, then on iOS. Oftentimes, like there are iOS clients, a lot of cases, the things that don't, even exist on the Mac, or web services, right? So much stuff has moved to things like web services or cross-platform services that it's not as critical. It's nice for taking care of those little last little linking pieces of software or whatever, but it's not. I think in general, it's more of a niche product than it was maybe 15 years ago.
Microsoft does get credit in its press release for including the registered logo and the TM logo 4 times in one headline. It's very impressive. They clearly didn't want Apple to get upset in any way about the use of the word Mac, Apple, M1 or M2. Why is M1 a R and an M2 a TM? That's kind of interesting. I'm sure there's a legal.
Maybe they didn't finish getting it registered yet. I don't know.
Isn't that weird? Or maybe
that seems unlike them.
You get the R once it's registered, and the TM just means that's probably what it is. It hasn't yet been approved. Yeah. This has been around. I mean, I put Parallels on an early M1 and ran the beta version of Windows on ARM. So people were saying, well, wait a minute, this isn't anything new. That's been around forever. It's now official. That's the difference. Microsoft, it's no longer a beta version of Windows on ARM. I asked Daniel Rubino, who was the editor-in-chief of Windows Central yesterday or Sunday, why it took so long, because there was some speculation that Microsoft had some sort of exclusive deal with Qualcomm, because, of course, all the Windows on ARM computers are Qualcomm-based processors. And he said it's really not that. It's that it's the drivers. The drivers are all Qualcomm, and they had to get drivers for Apple Silicon, and apparently that was non-trivial.
So. But there's even still a very, very vibrant Hackintosh community. So if they can figure out how to get Wi-Fi and Bluetooth going on an old Dell, I think that this is within the realm of Microsoft and Parallels.
They did it just in time for the cheapskates who have paid for TurboTax on the PC. They want to put it on their Windows machine just in the nick of time for tax day 2023. Anyway, I wasn't thinking I should have brought my laptop in and showed you. I showed did a little demo on Ask the Tech Guys on Sunday, so you can see that on Sunday. But yeah, it works, I guess, is the point, and it'll work for those of you who, it's still like I'm a realtor and I need the MLS app, to run on my M2 or something like that. It's that kind of line of business.
It's always fascinating, especially like when you look at the market for certain vintage computers. Like there's one of the classic first laptops, the Epson 820, something like that. You see all kinds of laptops are just like it. They're going for $20, $30, $40. Just get rid of it for me. But these specific models of Epsons are going for easy $200 to $300 when you can find them. It's easily what the money you can spend for it. And the reason why is because these devices are used as hardware controllers for like really, really old pump stations and really, really old alarm stations. And so you can either totally like rip out your entire pump controller station, or you can basically find a new working version of this laptop when this old 1983, 1984 laptop dies. Lamborghinis are the same way. The software to tune it and control it basically runs on a version of, I think it's like actually hardware locked for security purposes to this one model of laptop. And that's why, again, like if you're at the MIT flea market and you see just this hopper full of like old 1990s Windows laptops, and you find like this one, like take the entire box for $10, this is all like e-waste, you will find this one you can get $20,000 for, because it is a key piece of diagnostic equipment for a $500,000 supercar.
Let's take a little break. When we come back, Apple had an event that invited people to, maybe Jason Snell isn't really in New Zealand. He's just in Apple event land. I don't know. We will talk about the Apple event, which I think mostly was YouTubers who went to and just a little bit. But first, a word from our sponsor, Melissa. Melissa, you've heard me talk about Melissa. You've heard me call them the address experts. Really, it's a whole lot more. In fact, I think over the next few weeks when we talk about Melissa in their ads, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other things Melissa has done. They've actually released a solutions catalog, and I was amazed at the variety of things. It all revolves around customer data, customer information. And when it comes, when a customer comes to you and you get their data in their system, you want to make sure it's accurate. You want to keep it up to date. You want to make those address changes, the email changes, the name changes as they happen. And unfortunately, most businesses don't have any process in place to do that, which means that data is going to be going bad over time and costing you money. With Melissa, high-quality data can be achieved at the start. You can keep bad data from entering in your systems. You can streamline onboarding. You can combat fraud, gain a complete customer view for more informed business decisions, and you can keep that data up to date for as long as you use Melissa. So it's a really great solution that many businesses have found that saves them money, keeps them on track. Of course, you'll want to verify customers and business data to make sure your records remain accurate, current, and complete. You can do that with Melissa's Personator. Personator. I love it. They have Personator consumer and Personator identity services available in the U.S. and Canada. Personator consumer service matches names, addresses, phones, and emails and returns a list of the closest matches according to the specified inputs. That's very handy if you've got the spelling just a little bit off or a street name a little bit off. It can fix it. It's all in one contact checking. It also does verification. It uses the U.S. Postal Service's system to identify moves, so it'll update moves. It also will enrich. It's a web service that can check, verify, move, and append to your customer information. You pass in names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses. You simultaneously parse them, check them for correctness, making conservative or aggressive corrections. You get to choose. You get the latest address. You can even append data. There's also Personator Identity, and this is really important, a real-time solution that can handle international customer data in a compliant way, right? Verifying customer details, such as contact information, addresses, other useful properties. Personator Identity is a high-value service, can validate and cross-check personal data across multiple international data sources, and it does it in real time. It's kind of amazing. You'll be impressed by how quickly it does this. Verify individuals in real time using a variety of matching options. You can match against two sources using EIDV configurations for both sources. You can screen individuals against national watch lists. That's very helpful in preventing fraud. You can also identify potential fraud by matching a name to an address to validate identity. If it's a fraudulent name, it probably doesn't match the address. Since 1985, Melissa has specialized in global intelligence solutions. I thought they were just the address experts. No, global intelligence solutions to help organizations unlock accurate data for a more compelling view. And don't worry, your data is always safe, always compliant. Melissa undergoes continuous independent security audits to reinforce their commitment to data security, data privacy, and compliance requirements. They're SOC 2, HIPAA, and GDPR compliant. Your data is in the absolute best hands. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. That's Melissa, melissa.com/twit. We thank him so much for the support of MacBreak Weekly. You support us when you use that address, though. Make sure you use that. All our sponsors, they pay attention to that. That's how they know it's working. melissa.com/twit. Thursday. Did anybody get invited to the Big Apple event? Anybody?
Nope.
Bueller?
You'd have to be an employee to get to go to that one.
Invitees included CNN.
Oh, so this was this the AI
not the AI1, the gaming one.
We'll talk about the AI next.
Yeah, sorry.
CNN. I'm sorry. Apple had two events. This is the gaming event. CNN, Tom's Guide, well-known YouTube personalities like Jacqueline Dallas. Jacqueline is how we know about it because she put it on her Insta. Jacqueline, there she is, Insta. She's standing right there. She said, Apple event that truly left me so inspired and excited. It was a bunch of developers that are making apps for Apple's Arcade and Mac. You'd think she has a big YouTube channel. She could afford pants without holes in it, but I don't know. Anyway, games are so special to me because they can transcend cultural differences and are so based in storytelling and having fun. The developers were also infectiously passionate about their new launches. Made my whole day. Would you like to know the games that she saw that transcended cultural differences based in storytelling and having fun? Call of Duty Warzone Mobile. Cultural differences as long as you're not a Nazi. Honkai Star Rail, Lego Star Wars Castaways, and Run Legends and the Medium. By the way, very first comment, this reads more like a PR piece than a hands-on experience. Well,
did anybody check their clock and see that it's once again time for Apple to talk about how much it cares about gaming?
Gaming, we love gaming.
Pretty regularly, every 6 or 7 years, Apple is like, oh, games, right, a big market that we really haven't addressed in a super long time. Let's get on that.
Yeah, and GDC is in 2 or 3 weeks. So Game Developers Conference is coming up in San Francisco. So the timing is usually late February, early March is a good time to talk about games. It's when everyone's thinking about them.
Yeah. I wrote a piece a couple of weeks ago. I do a column over at Macworld, and it was about the cultural problems that Apple has with making the Mac a gaming platform, and why, there are technological hurdles, but I think the fundamental issue for Apple in gaming is that nobody who is in a high enough position to make decisions cares about games, really. Like when Steve Jobs used to talk about music, when he had the iPod and, talked about like, oh, I love music and we're bringing it to this is the digital music experience. You got the sense that he was a music fan, right? Like that was something he was interested in, and that interest lined up nicely with something Apple's going to do. But then he would talk about movies or TV shows and be like, yeah, we also got movies, we got TV shows, whatever. I don't think he particularly cared, because I don't think he treated that in the same way that to him music was kind of like this sacred thing. And I don't think anybody at a high enough level in Apple really cares about gaming, and that shows because they're just, as hard as they have tried to make this argument, it's not really backed up with anything. Well, so
I think one of the biggest mistakes on many platforms is that people try to do what everybody else is doing, and I think Apple's doing a little bit of that, or maybe a lot of that. Okay, we've got a bunch of games, but they're not taking full advantage of what they could be doing. They have hardware, starts at a phone and eventually will end with a MacBook or a Mac Pro. They have a streaming system to do content around that. They have a lot of things that most game developers don't have, and they could take better advantage of that. And that might give them something that was a lot more interesting. The problem right now is that they're just doing more games the way that they have always been done, and they're at a huge disadvantage because no one wants to play them there. And so they're playing into their weaknesses, not into their strengths. I think that there's a lot from a broadcast perspective. When you think about Apple TV Plus, there's a lot that could be done if you started to transcend. A lot of these first-person shooters are not really watchable. I mean, they're watchable for gamers, but they're not watchable for average people in the same way that large sports go. And they go, well, we filled up a stadium. I'm like, yeah, but can you fill it up 22 of those every weekend? No, probably not. And so there's big numbers. And the problem is the games are too complicated to watch. And you could build simpler games that did a lot of things that were viewable and, that also scaled in technology from the very basic phone all the way up and seamlessly take full advantage of that hardware. But they'd have to build that from the ground up, and they'd have to stop building, the cut the rope style games that they're building now, which is fine on a phone. But there's just not that many.
Nobody
games.
wants to watch you play cut the rope.
Exactly.
I understand the game, but I don't want to watch it.
But I don't like to watch. I mean, I try to watch like Call of Duty and a lot of the other ones. And I'm just like,
Fortnite or Call of Duty, Quake Arena, which has been around forever. Those are pretty. Games, they're not complicated. I understand when you're talking about a MOBA like League of Legends. It's like, I don't know. You really have to know even start whatever is it?
Like a football field is really simple.
Yeah.
you understand, you can see everything that's
you
going
say
on.
that because you teased on the Pittsburgh Steelers. A football game is not that simple. It's complicated.
Well, but it's a lot simpler than Call of Duty or Fortnite. That's all I'm saying.
Depends on where you're coming from. I mean, there's lots of people from a
camera perspective, and understanding where you are and how it's working.
The beauty of Call of Duty and Fortnite is you don't need a camera. The game does it for you.
But that's part of the problem. I mean, I think that the issue is that the game, the way that camera works, if you're not the player, is not
actually one of the most interesting things that's happened in esports is games have started to build in the ability for a director to switch cameras. So you are now, like Fortnite's a perfect example. I've watched Fortnite games in esports, and some director somewhere is saying, well, let's go over and see how Ninja's doing. Yep. And and look at it for the third person. Look at let's see what Ninja's seeing. I think that is possible. That's certainly doable.
It's starting to get there
into games.
Yeah, I've talked to some developers about that, and evidently, I mean, basically, when they're doing those are basically unrendered non-player characters, and that are being able to be placed around within that system. And the issue that they really get into is that once they're doing the development, they're getting ready to release the game. Putting those in is not. It's the last thing they want to do, and it's really hard to. And I've talked to people who do the video, and they're like, "We just want to have some more camera angles," and they're like, "Yeah, we don't have time to do that. We have a release schedule." Well, and so that's been the problem they've had.
That's happening, and Fortnite's been out for a while. And they have a lot of developers. They have a lot of money. billions.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to see Apple doing anything with Fortnite anytime soon.
No,
I don't think. Yeah,
right.
but I think Apple could build literally just contract someone to do something like that, and you say, well, they wouldn't get it off the ground. Well, if you put a $10 million prize for the winner of the tournament, you get a lot of people playing. And then it's just a matter of whether it's a good, a good game.
Is the issue? I mean, it's kind of a chicken and egg, right? That not enough gamers are using Macs for me to. I'm going to develop my game for Windows, PS5, and Xbox because that's where the gamers are.
Right. Well, so this has always been the chicken and egg problem with Apple, right? Like they don't have the games, therefore they don't get the gamers, therefore they don't get the games. This has been a problem for 20 years or more. I mean, as somebody, who's been playing Mac games since like 90s, they had a brief moment there. And I think kind of you can pinpoint the moment it all went downhill back when Steve Jobs got on stage at Macworld Expo and showed off this great new game coming to the Mac called Halo. And then Microsoft bought Bungie and it didn't show up on the Mac for several years. And I think Apple always felt a little burned by that and really struggled with trying to come back from it. And I think what's fundamentally happened is that a lot of the people who play, who own Macs maybe and do everything else on a Mac got frustrated with the lack of games and went to building a PC that they could play games on or buying a console. And it's really hard to come back from that. Apple had this weird, honestly, fluke with like iOS, right? Where mobile gaming they built an awesome platform that was really advantageous for mobile games and had a lot of great technology in it. But they didn't set out to build that for games. They got lucky. Developers on that platform were like, oh, this could be a really great opportunity for games. But the scale is not the same. The building the stuff on mobile is not the same as building the top tier games on the Mac. And it's not that the hardware or horsepower isn't necessarily there. It's that the investment in time and energy from game developers to build their game for yet another platform that doesn't use tooling that's the same necessarily as what they're doing on the PC or consoles. It's just expensive and there's no market.
Yeah, I think Google fell into the same trap that Apple did or is trying to recover from, which is that, I think Dan had a good point about music where at some point Apple said, you know what, we're going to hire in Jimmy Iovine. We're going to bring in Dre. That's how invested we are in making something that can compete with Spotify. They have not ever made that kind of investment. That we're gonna get the Jimmy Iovine of gaming working for us to basically, who has both the plan, the understanding of the market, and the deep contacts and respects of that market to basically really emphatically say, come on here, we will take care of you for several years. This isn't just a passing fancy. Whereas, of course, Google made the same mistake of like, hey, we got this great cloud game streaming platform. You can actually develop for this cloud platform instead of having to do X, Y, and Z. And they just didn't have the level of interest in it, and so everyone very, very wisely basically stayed out of it. And I don't know if Apple can ever get that kind of mojo back, because the game industry has just moved so far past them at this point, where you really have to explain, okay, the people that we're building games for, explain to me why, if they're really interested in AAA games, they don't already have a $500 game console. They haven't completely solved this problem by even buying a $300 previous generation game console. Explain to me why we should invest several years and millions of dollars hoping to basically get people to put down a game controller that's probably already connected to a PlayStation or an Xbox and pick up a game controller that's hooked up to a MacBook instead. They can't make that argument.
Is it worth it? Is there enough money in it to make it worthwhile?
For gaming, there is. I mean, gaming's huge, right? Like, I think the issue is, to Andy's point, like some of it is they need people in there, like, they hired people at Apple TV Plus who knew Hollywood and knew the industry and knew how to make TV shows. They need to do something similar to that for gaming. And there's a sincerity problem. If you watch Tim Cook or Craig Federighi get up on stage and talk about how great a game is, nobody believes them, because if you think Tim Cook is out there playing video games, no, he's clearly not. So you need somebody out there who really knows that market well enough and can convey that to the audience, not just, oh, there's this other cool thing, gaming. Yeah, I guess that's big.
John Carmack's on the street. Maybe you could hire him. He'd be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the thing that they also need to do is, the advantage of them paying for these kinds of things is they have to build most of the games that they're building or that they're promoting don't really take advantage of the platform. I mean, they are, they're fine games. They'll run on an Apple TV just as well as they'll run on a MacBook Studio or a Mac Studio or whatever. And I think that the thing is that they need to have games because the reality is that the hardware that Apple is now producing with the M2s and the coming M3s is far faster than a console. And it has way more horsepower, and they need to build games, even if they're relatively simple games that just kind of are eye popping, that kind of, so the gamers can see, wow, if you write to the metal, literally, that you are going to get some incredible performance. And that starts to get people thinking about it because when you can outrun these, they're updating these all the time. The consoles update every once in a while. And Apple could easily, especially with a Mac Pro, start showing some incredible performance that would be hard. And even with the Mac Minis, I mean, even the Mac Minis will do better than probably most consoles. So the thing is that there's nothing that they're putting out that has you go, wow, that's a great piece of hardware. It's all like goofy little games that aren't pushing the processor.
They're targeting it from like an ecosystem perspective, right? Like they're going for like almost like a trickle up, like, oh, run on your iPhone as well as it runs on your Mac. It's like, well, we don't want the base level of this necessarily be, not that the iPhone is super low power or anything, but like going for something that runs across all these devices is a hard sell, because making a game that runs just as well on the iPhone from experience as on the Mac in terms of things like interface is hard and it's difficult. And I think you want to target the top tier stuff that trickles downward, or, that shows off, like you said, the flagship technology, rather than working on stuff that necessarily works as well on every device they have.
But that's a level. I mean, oftentimes that's a level of detail issue. So you're dealing with how many polygons am I throwing at it? So I might put, on an iPhone, I might throw 2 million polygons at a scene. On a Mac Studio, I might put 40 million at a scene. Am I going to have short depth of field? Am I going to add motion blur, anti-aliasing, all of these other things that are there? And those are for a long time in games have been little switches that turn on and that can be automatically on the I know I'm on an iPhone. I'm going to turn all this stuff off so it plays well. It's not a matter of changing the game or the interface. It's a matter of just deciding which models, which rendering engine, which part of those things are being used based on what you have in that performance. And you can scale that up to some pretty insane looking things that are available right now in real time and have been for a little while, but definitely with the M processors, the M series processors, that they're not taking advantage of. And Apple's the only one that can really do this, where they can say, I know that you're on an Apple TV or an iPhone, and I can scale to your point. I can scale all the way up to something that is taking, like, that would thump a Mac Pro, the new Mac Pro that comes out, or the Mac Studio that's out there. I can do something that's going to keep that running at about 90% capacity, and it'll look amazing. And when you open on your iPhone, it'll look the same, but it's going to be, lower resolution, simpler rendering, those types of things.
It's no accident that when Mike Andronico of CNN went to this Apple event on Thursday, his article focused on the mobile games. That was, and I think because Apple sells so many iPhones, I think developers would be foolish to not consider, mobile. This is Call of Duty Warzone Mobile from Activision, maybe someday Microsoft Activision. But do you think that there's any chance of getting the desktop to be, I think in some ways, be honest with you, and boy, I'm going to get hate mail for this, PC gaming is kind of legacy. That's a small group of people that go out and soup up a PC and buy a PC just to play video games. I don't think that's a big audience.
I don't think it's necessarily the big audience, but it's kind of
it's the driving
not exactly
audience,
a flagship, but it's like it's the one it's the visible audience, right? And like, yeah, not everybody's going to be buying a PC to play games on, but like when you talk about stuff like esports and whatever, there's a lot of visibility for those people, and it kind of trickles downwards. But I think, consoles are the big competition here. Like Andy said, you can buy a $500 console like that puts your Mac gaming to shame. It's tough to make the argument on the desktop.
Is Apple correct in saying, we got this mobile gaming? We got it. We do it. We're succeeding.
Well, they don't have to win to make money. So it doesn't like, they have, the casual game market's about a $25 billion market.
But the audience here, though, let's say, is probably not gamers. It's probably developers. Right?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Or consumers, right? The game market is interesting.
Are they trying to get consumers to, a consumer either has an iPhone or not. People don't buy iPhones to play games.
No, but everybody who has a smartphone plays probably some games, is my guess, right? Like, so it's a big addressable
mostly
market
what I think I think that's what I mean is that Apple wants developers to recognize that and develop for it. That's the chicken and egg. You got to get developers first. But
yeah, I think they've struggled.
Yeah, but I think you're right. They don't have the Jimmy Iovine. They need the guy who's got credibility.
I still think that gaming. I still think that, and one of my first jobs was an art director for a real-time game. Like, so it wasn't even 30 years ago. So I've kind of grown up inside of a lot of this stuff, and I've worked with a lot of those folks. And I still think gaming is constrained by its own success. You know, it does really well, but it's in its own little box. Yeah. It's going to stay there until someone starts building something that's outside of that box. And I think Apple could do that, and they do well. It's the same thing with books. I mean, Apple played to trying to just compete with Amazon rather than building a new market for more aggressive books 10 years ago. And they haven't really moved the needle that much because of that. And I think I think we're going to probably see another.
Yeah. Do you think that this event was originally planned to be the debut of Apple VR? The latest rumor from Mark Gurman is Apple VR is not coming out in the spring, but coming out in June, WWDC. Do you think maybe that this was planned to do that?
I think the rumors are the only thing that anybody thought was going to come out before June. June is the time you release the headset. I mean, it's WWDC.
I had some sources on this one suggesting that was always the intention to be a WWDC, and I think that's true. If you see the rumors of people talking about this as a $3,000 device that, Apple doesn't really have a great selling point, and it's kind of like the prototype for what's coming down the road. This is not something that I think is targeted at consumers as much as it's targeted at developers to build software for this device so that later on it can be sold to consumers with, hey, look at all these great apps that we have. It's not going to be the first party experiences that sell this to consumers. It's going to be the ecosystem and the breadth of things. And I don't think going direct to consumer with the first model of this is not the Apple Watch. Right. This is,
But it is. Also, I mean, at least VR in the rest of the world is really primarily for gaming.
Yeah. For now.
So GDC is coming up. You would want to have maybe at least some room somewhere where you can invite some developers over to show them this and say, well, you really need to be working on this.
Also, the thing is, we keep talking about AAA gaming because that is the most impressive thing to show off your hardware, to show off how well your hardware can stretch its legs. But Apple, I think last year or the year before, they're consistently when you list the top 5 companies by revenue off gaming, Apple is always in the top 5. They often beat Microsoft even, and that's not because that they have their own gaming platform. It's because they have a huge app store and they make a lot of money off of in-game revenue. So really, they can have something. If Roblox continues to be a huge success, Apple can continue to be a huge success like that. They don't necessarily need to show we have the highest performance. Here's the amount of polygons we can render. Here's the amount of lighting effects we can do live. Here's the ray tracing that we can bounce off. Here's access to our version of Metal. They can just simply keep taking that 30%, even adjusting it down to 15 to 18% off of very, very simple games that are designed to run on anything that will run on 2 AA batteries and can support 4 tricolor LEDs. That's really what all the money off of gaming is being made by. Not super high performance $8,000 gaming PCs, but simple, addictive slot machine type games that keep people coming back, keep people making purchases, that will run on as many different platforms as possible. They don't care about this wonderful opportunity that you have to make a unique game for the Mac or even a unique game for the iPhone. They want to make sure that they only care about what audience can you deliver to me. And given how lucrative the iOS, the iPhone audience is, how proven they are as they're not just there in numbers, but they're also people who like to spend money. That's why Apple has success with gaming. It might be a fool's errand to try to figure out how to get them to get the next Cuphead, get the next Red Dead Redemption 2, because it might be pretty much meaningless for them, except for just having that being able to tell themselves that yes, we are a AAA gaming platform.
So let's talk about that VR headset, Dan. Why did we think it was going to come out sooner?
I mean, in large part because there are stories that keep coming out about it getting delayed, and I think there's a narrative built up around this. That certainly, I think Apple wanted to get this thing out, as soon as possible when it was ready. But this is Apple; they try not to ship stuff, but when it's in a beta phase, they try to want to come out, make a big splash, and have it be fully functional. And so I think the pandemic and the supply chain stuff that everybody's experienced over the last couple of years has certainly slowed down development, but I don't think that it's necessarily something that was ever had a date. So to say it's delayed is like, well, maybe internally it's slowed down, but it's not like we're going to have an AR VR headset in next year. They never said that, right? So
makes sense. WWDC, that's in June. This is the $3,000 version of the Apple VR headset that would be primarily aimed at developers, so that we'll have some great games. What, in Christmas timeframe? When do you think?
I don't even know. I'm open to the idea that Apple will actually make sure that this is however many they're able to manufacture, and they may not be able to manufacture as many as they want. They make sure that it goes to people who are already registered developers, that you or I can't just simply say, hey, that sounds like fun to me. I'll buy a $3,000 headset to be one of the people who gets to play the first version of Apple VR Pong or whatever. It's possible that they really want to have that groundswell of active, actual, creative and engaged developers, so that when they do release something that is more consumer friendly, both in terms of having the user interface dialed in correctly, getting the weight down, getting the battery life down, getting heat problems mitigated, all the stuff that makes a developer thing into a consumer device, here is a library of actual things that we've figured out. Because one of the biggest problems with AR and VR continues to be nobody manufacturing these things or designing these things has any idea what consumers want out of this. So they're really going to have to lean on developers to help to find the cool, to find the usefulness, to find the awesomeness in this. And then, just like with the Apple Watch, it turned out that people wanted a fitness watch. We promoted this as a wearable computing device. It's actually a huge fitness device. Great. So now we will sell this. We know that we need to market this and sell this as a fitness device. Apple's not going to know how to sell their VR AR headset until developers come out and figure that stuff out and see what people relate to. So it might be, if they can only sell 10,000 of these, which is minuscule by Apple standards, or in the tens of thousands,
even a million is small for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it might behoove them to say, we want to make sure that this is not something that people play with for a few hours, show off at the bar, show off on their Zooms, show off on their Twitch and their YouTube channels, and then put in a box until it's time to make fun of them 6 months later. They want to make sure that these are seeds that are being put into the ground to grow something that they can actually profit from in 2024.
Well, you know what is coming this spring? Very exciting. U.S. Department of Justice antitrust probe.
Yay! Pictures and catches report.
This is from the Wall Street Journal. The U.S. is escalating the Apple probe, adding litigators, seeking more data, and all of this could make it possible that as soon as this spring, the department could file a lawsuit. Of course, it would be over the App Store and Apple's policies in the App Store. Something Apple's not relishing. The antitrust chief of the United States, the Justice Department's top antitrust official, Jonathan Cantor, who had recused himself from similar cases because he's worked for some companies like Spotify that have sued big tech companies in the past. So, but apparently the DOJ is saying, nah, we think Cantor is okay for pursuing this, and I'm sure that Apple's not thrilled to hear that. Google tried to get him off their case for the same reasons, saying he represented clients making antitrust complaints against Google and couldn't be impartial. The department rejected that argument and is presumably going to reject any argument against Mr. Cantor for the Apple case.
I will say it's kind of amazing that they're rejecting that, because in almost any other case, like as it comes from a family lawyer,
in a normal
any other case,
a judge would be
any other world
for sure.
A judge or another lawyer. I mean, a judge would absolutely have to recuse himself.
Yeah, but he's not acting as a judge. He's acting as an advocate. He's acting as an attorney. So
it's gooey.
It's a little sticky. He's worked for Spotify. his firm has worked for, not him directly, but his firm has worked for Spotify and Tile, the messaging service Blix, the Coalition for App Fairness. Okay. So, I mean, he's definitely
very impartial.
But Lena Khan has also written papers saying, Google's too big and so forth. They are acting as advocates. They're not acting as adjudicators. So, they're not expected to be, completely nonpartisan. Justice Department investigators asking companies for internal sales and market data. Information on an expedited time frame indicates they might be looking at filing a case soon. It's the San Francisco office of the U.S. Department of Justice is handling most of the investigation. They're closest to Apple. And, of course, Spotify and Tile, two of the companies who are very angry at Apple.
Yeah. And that does show that this is a broad investigation. The App Store, Apple is really in trouble with the App Store. There are a lot of
because it's not just here; it's the EU as well, right?
Yeah, I mean this is where any government can really put Apple into a very, very itchy situation. But it goes beyond that. They are talking about things like Tile complaining that, hey, how come like you have a competing product, but you don't warn people that the AirTag could compromise your phone security. You only when we try to connect a Tile do you warn us about our device. Spotify's old beef was that you have how easy is it for us to compete with Apple when they have their own competing service? They allow Apple Music app to have rights and abilities and access to the OS that Spotify doesn't have. It comes pre-installed on the device, whereas Spotify doesn't. Now, granted, Spotify is still twice the business that Apple Music has, but these are all very, very relevant things to talk about when you have Apple that maintains such a tight control over who accesses pieces of hardware, who gets to access NFC, who gets to access Apple Pay. All these things that you and I will talk about why it's a very, very important security thing to make sure that Apple trusts itself and Apple can police itself. However, they can't necessarily trust an outside device maker like Tile to always be acting above board, but they're going to have to explain that to a judge as well. So
I think that
a big deal.
The issue with Tile was they want to sell your data. Like and the app and the AirTag doesn't. So I think that was the difference. The warning was because
that is Tile's complaint was that Apple uses privacy as a shield to protect its market, and that was their complaint.
As a user, I don't want a tracker selling my data.
It's two benefits in one. We make more money, and your privacy is protected. So I mean that. I don't know if that argument is going to be persuasive. These things take a lot of time, even if the Justice Department files in the spring.
I'm 100% behind it going to court.
Yeah,
I think that
court will
I think that having lawmakers make decisions because they're digital children should not. It scares me a lot because they just don't know what they're talking about. Having to go through wind its way through the court system, I think totally makes sense.
Usually what happens.
The challenge in the EU is going to be that because the EU is going to be making laws about this already, and Apple's going to have to comply with whatever comes down the pike there. Just like we talked about.
I think Apple's already preparing to do that, right?
That is the word on the street. Is they're already knowing that's going to happen, and they're going to get try to get ahead of it and do basically the bare minimum to keep above board.
Right.
Yeah, it's buying. They're just buying time at this point.
The first thing they're going to do apparently is let third-party browsers live on iOS and not use WebKit. Firefox is reportedly preparing a version of Firefox that uses its own engine. Would you guys rush to the store and get a non-WebKit based browser on your iPhones? No way.
No way. It'll most likely have security issues and be a power hog. And so the thing is that I think that it would be. I mean, it'll be. We'll see. But I can promise you that they will also promote everything that goes
no way. I might. I use. I used to use Firefox Focus, which is a privacy first browser. On top, and it runs on top of WebKit. It's basically Safari with stuff. I use one called Neva right now. That's the search engine I prefer. If Neva offered a Chromium-based or a Firefox-based engine, I'd probably look at it. Why not protect yourself against Apple as well as every other privacy invader?
It would also be interesting to see exactly what the strictures are from Apple on this, because I don't think it will necessarily be you can run your browser engine unfettered with no security checks.
We'll see.
Right?
Yeah.
They're gonna lock it down in some way and prevent them from doing some stuff.
They'll do the minimum. Whatever
Or-
they think will get them off the hook with the EU, they're going to do.
Or if they don't think it'll infect them, they'll give you enough rope to hang yourself. Like they'll just let you run with it, and when you screw up, they'll make sure it gets into the press. And so that's the other direction they could take.
Yeah, but on the other hand, we're just coming off of a massive WebKit 0 day that Apple had to release emergency patches across everything for. So it's not as though like Apple is a holy among holies for they're just another browser manufacturer. And if you find that you have better faith in Chromium, if you have better faith in Firefox-based browsers, at least that's an option. If you have better faith in the rendering capabilities of a Chromium-based engine, and I think that Chromium, for all of its foibles, including power hungriness, including memory hungriness, I think that if you want to have the greatest chance that what you see on your device is what was intended at the other end, Chromium is still the way to go. I'm very much in favor of the user being able to make those choices. I mean, if DuckDuckGo were to come up with their own blessed engine, being able to make their own enhancements to whatever engine, oh my goodness, that could dislodge everything for me on every iOS device I own.
That, by the way, that bug we mentioned last week, but we should reiterate, is a serious zero-click privilege escalation on macOS and iOS. That's why you should absolutely be running iOS 16.3 or macOS 13.2, and if you aren't, you should update. Good article today from Trellix, which was the company that discovered this 0 day, and you can read about it. The Apple themselves said that the 0 day was already being seen in the wild, so that the bug was being seen in the wild. So significant. That's the kind of thing that nation states love, is a zero-click remote code execution exploit. That's what Pegasus did, and I'm sure the folks who, I guess the company that makes Pegasus now has a new name, or they closed and then they I don't know. Anyway,
you see, it all turned out to be fine. We were worried about nothing.
I'm sure they're looking for new stuff. This will be a good one. Anyway, good article in Trellix's blog, trellix.com, about how this works. A malicious NS predicate can execute code within the privileges of the process. In Safari or Messages, that means it can run as root. And that's not good. That's not a good thing. So, yeah, I mean, Apple's not perfect in this regard either. Nobody is.
No, yeah, right.
Nobody is.
Software was a bad idea.
Yep.
We should probably just take it back to the drawing board.
Yeah. So here's the other event. WWDC for AI for Apple employees only. Because Apple, like every other company, is now at great pains to say, we can do it. We can do it too. Facebook, Google had that rushed event last week. Of course, Microsoft has already backed down a little bit on Bing AI, putting restrictions on it.
My question is how did they take ChatGPT, which did some goofy stuff, but didn't do? It seems like Bing, what it felt like is they added a couple things to it to make it safeguarded or something. They added some kind of control, and it just kind of lost. I don't know.
It wasn't ChatGPT 3. It was a newer version of ChatGPT. Maybe it was newer, smarter, and more likely to fall in love with you, or conversely, hate your guts.
Try to kill you.
What happened really was a lot of people got into long interactive conversations and pushed it long enough so that it just came apart. Just like autocorrect does. If you go long enough with autocorrect, eventually you're going to get some weird stuff. And it's
reinforcing bad behavior. That works with people too. It just takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
I was using ChatGPT this morning because on a whim I decided to see if it would summarize the plots of my own books for me.
Yeah.
It went interestingly. Some of them were close, but had things that were just glaringly wrong. And then as it went on, they got it invented a main character that was not.
Yeah.
But was it good? Was it a good main character? That's the question.
No. I'm going to say no on that one. I thought it was kind of, and then the most recent one is just like the plot had nothing to do whatsoever. It was just like, I asked about my book and it's like, oh, that book doesn't exist. I'm like, you're sure this book from the publisher and this date? And it said, oh yeah, totally. I know about that book. And then it had invented an entire plot, like a college freshman who's been put on the spot.
That's great.
That's really ChatGPT in a nutshell, actually.
It's it's like being able to go on a message board and discuss your own work with people. Saying, look, I've read Dan Morin's books from the very, very beginning. I think I know what the I think I know which book takes place in the Old West. Okay, as a matter of fact, he called me to ask about stagecoach routes in the Old West. I don't try to pretend that you know more than I. Yeah.
So what do we know about this? Earlier this month, Apple event. It was at Steve Jobs Theater. This came from Bloomberg. Mark Gurman got somebody to tell him all about it.
Well, it doesn't look like this was really a special event. This is a yearly event that just stopped during COVID, and so it just came back up. And
okay.
Today's and this week's subject happened to be the AI stuff, which I think it makes sense for an internal meeting going. And part of this is probably keeping employees at the company that are interested in this going, hey, there's a lot of public stuff going on at Google and Microsoft and all these other ones. We're doing a lot of great stuff too. You want to see what we're doing. I think that might have been part of that retention process.
I saw a headline or a story that framed this very much as Apple failed to talk about a ChatGPT being competitor. And I was like, well, of course, why? No, why would they even be doing that?
Yeah, that's not their thing. Yeah.
It's an annual event, so it's not something new. Apple does have a lot of very good researchers in AI. You wouldn't know it talking to Siri, but there's other things Apple does with AI. And maybe there's
a lot. I mean, machine learning and AI is a huge underpinning of all, like a lot of the stuff in the camera, and photos, all of that search, proactive stuff. I don't know. I think Apple has gone for a much less flashy approach to how it uses machine learning and AI, and I think that's probably for the
smart.
better.
Looking at what Google and Microsoft have experienced by rushing their product into the public.
Well, I think that Google has done a okay job in that every time they've, even way before ChatGPT became a thing, they've been highlighting that, hey, look, we've got this new model called Lambda. We are developing it. We're still experimenting with this. Here's some examples of what it could potentially do. They released it on a limited basis inside an app. Is not as part of any sort of hey, anybody with a web browser can check this out. It's like, no, if you're allowed into this beta, you can download this app and test out and help strengthen Lambda by having conversations on these limited areas that we've programmed this app to be able to handle. And even as they've been trying to deal with all the bad press they've been getting about ChatGPT and what is Google doing, they've said it's not that we can't do that. It's just that the Ark is the source of unspeakable power and it has to be researched. And so now you see the wisdom of them saying, yes, we have this new thing called Bard. The only people we like Bing, we too have thousands of people testing it. However, they are all Google employees that aren't allowed to share their chats with other people because we know that bad and weird and wonderful things are going to happen, and we want people to know about none of it. But Apple is exactly right there. We see the effects of AI research, not necessarily in oh goodness, you've got this monkey at the other end of an invisible window that can have conversations with you, but the idea that when you are typing on a keyboard on your iPhone, the fact that it knows that, oh, okay, he hit the T a little bit off center when he was writing this word. I'm going to learn that actually that's going to influence how I interpret how he tries to type a T in the future. Basically, trying to the fact that you can mishit on this virtual keyboard by a really wide margin, and it will still figure out based on how you type certain words. It will be able to sort of predict. Here's what I think you meant to do. That is where the real meat of artificial intelligence is, today and right now. We don't have to argue about whether it's stealing content from other people. We don't have to think about how this keyboard is going to put other people, industries out of business, but it enhances our life each and every day, even though there's no big patriotic flag to wave about, hey, look, we are the AI leaders right now.
Let's see what else is going on in the wonderful world of Apple. We have a departure from Apple, a veteran Apple product marketing exec, a guy who calls himself the co-creator of GarageBand. I don't know if that's fair.
I think most people thought he was. This is Xander
Soren. Yeah. He was the creator of GarageBand.
I think he's co-creator or part of that. And he was integral to, I mean, for the last, I've run into him at most conferences at some point, but really integral to the Logic development, GarageBand development. So the pro audio apps has really been his.
He came from
focus.
Sonic Foundry, so that was his specialty was that kind of stuff. And he was 21 years at Apple, director of product marketing for the pro apps. This is actually not something new. He departed in November of last year, but people are just now learning about it, I guess, from his LinkedIn profile.
I like that it says this because he's launching a wine business. So
yeah,
that's good. You know what? That's great.
And the thing is, if you've been getting stock from Apple for 20 years, those golden handcuffs eventually become golden wings, and you don't really need to be here, anymore. And so I think that, a lot of times you do see it after 15 or 20 years. If you don't see, you're in that groove. I think he's done a really good job. I think Logic has come a long way since Apple bought it. But I think it is a little concerning. We've seen over the last 6 months or so, we've seen quite a few people leave the pro apps. It's a little, the number of people leaving is for those of us who use Logic and Final Cut and Motion and other things, a little concerning that so many have left. Some of them have been the remote work. I know that some of them have been kind of like, I moved out during COVID and I don't want to come back. So there have been a couple of them that have, and we don't know how many of those, but a lot of them didn't want to keep on going to Cupertino. That seemed to be a fair number of folks that that have left. But also it's unclear what's going on with the apps. Where are they going? How fast are they growing? What's the investment? So I think I think a lot of people are wondering. We haven't seen updates for a while. So I think that's also a concern. Some people think that it might be that they're getting ready for the, as a development tool for the AR VR initiatives, because there's a lot of tools that those things will need for content creation. And there's a lot of those tools have already been added to Motion and Final Cut and to some degree to Logic. And so the question is, if you're in a more traditional round or more traditional flow, you may not be interested in the next thing. And so if that's what they're doing, and no one really knows. So those are the things.
Well, we'll welcome him to the wine country up here in Sonoma County. There is an old saying up here in Sonoma and Napa that the fastest way to become a millionaire is to buy a vineyard and be a billionaire. And I think he may take that 21 years of Apple stock and be sinking it into a fine business. I actually know quite a few winemakers up here, and a lot of them, I would say more than half, didn't come from a background in winemaking. Were doctors and lawyers and startup executives, and it's always been their dream. I hope you have a lot of money to spend.
That's like the old saying in publishing. How do you make a small fortune in publishing?
Start with a large fortune. Yeah, that's the better way to say it.
Exactly.
As you may know, we've reported on it, the International Trade Commission in ITC in December said that Apple had infringed on a LiveCore's patent. A LiveCore is that electrocardiogram device. It actually works with your iPhone. You put your thumbs on it, and it'll tell you if you're an AFib and go to the doctor. A LiveCore sued Apple, saying, hey, that we invented that. The ITC agreed. The commission's ruling could result in an import ban on Apple Watch unless the Biden administration steps in. And that's where Shara Aronoff steps in. Former ITC chair in the Obama administration, she's a lobbyist and now works for Apple and has been lobbying hard to keep the Apple Watch shipping. According to this story from The Hill, she's been going over to the White House trying to get President Biden and his staff to say, that Apple Watch is pretty important in the American economy. A LiveCore's CEO said Apple has unlimited resources. They're going to go after everyone they can get, and that's what they're doing. Now, did he rule? Because this was supposed to happen yesterday. Did he rule one way or the other? Do we know? He could have vetoed the ITC ruling or let the dispute move forward in court. Let me see if there's anything new on that.
Yeah, it's supposedly action's going to happen sometime this week. I don't believe it's happened yet today.
According to Reuters, Biden will not veto the watch import ban. So All that money.
Well, as I think John Gruber pointed out, the Hill quotes $9.4 million, which Gruber worked out to about an hour of its annual profit.
1 hour of Apple profit.
It could throw a lot more money at that if it really wanted to.
Well, I mean, but at some point, if you've spent $9.4 million and it didn't work, would it work better if you spent $900 million? I don't know. I mean,
probably not.
Probably not. AliveCore said the office at Toyota Reuters, the office of the U.S. Trade Representative, said that it will not veto the decision. The ban is on hold, of course, while Apple and AliveCore continue to fight it out in court. You may remember
feels like a thing that's going to get solved by money.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe give some of that money to AliveCore. That might solve the problem. USPTO found AliveCore's patents invalid, by the way, but AliveCore is appealing that as well. Apple said today it will appeal the ITC's import ban decision. So everybody's appealing, which Apple says this is going to have a negative effect on public health. Okay, that's where you're going to go with that, huh? All right. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to kill people.
We talked about this in how every single event they start off with, people who would have been dead if it weren't for their iPhone or for their Apple Watch, with the implicit message being, nice kid you got there. be ashamed if they went off a ditch and they were using an Android watch. Wouldn't it be?
So there are competing lawsuits being filed in both directions. Another patent infringement lawsuit has been filed against Apple in Texas federal court, which is where you file those, and we'll just watch with interest as this wends its way through the courts, as we say. Fortunately, we have some nice new emojis coming that might help us write about stories like this. iOS 16.4 public beta is out. Here's from Emojipedia a look at some of the new emojis. That is shaking face. It is literally a shaking face.
What does that mean?
I'm falling over.
So we talked about this on Sunday, and
makes good eye check.
I think are
my eyes blurry?
Yeah, Ben Parr said it's not for us to decide what it means. It's for the users to decide what it means. There's now a blue heart, a gray heart, and is that pink? Plain pink heart. Apparently there was no pink heart before. There are hands left and right facing each other. One suggestion for those hands is they make a really good high five if you put the dynamite emoji in between them.
Also a really good talk to the hand.
That's what I thought it was when I first saw it. It's like talk to the hand. But again,
from a clown emoji. Yeah.
It's for the people. It's for the people to decide.
I love the proposal. If you scroll down a little bit there to the gaps in the colored hearts, it shows like the color wheels. This is
oh my God,
this is the
crazy.
issue where we don't have enough hearts in the right colors. They're grouped in the wrong place. This is the stuff that comes into basically proposing new emoji is great because the proposals have to be incredibly thorough and detailed to justify why should we add this? Why does the Unicode Consortium need to add this to the list of emoji? And it's a delight whenever you watch people argue so seriously about we need an emoji that represents the ginger root is killing us all to not have that.
It really is great because it illustrates two things that I love. Number one, how absolutely RPG rules nitpicky engineers can be. Where remember last year, a conservative press, like Fox News, is all like, "Oh, this is where, oh my goodness, there's going to be a pregnant man emoji. This is where it's gone too far." And I was asked to go on WGN in Chicago to talk about this, and I had to explain to them that they're expecting a discussion about why the acknowledgement of gender being different, the acknowledgement of, and I said, you don't understand. This is because of a very bureaucratic rule. Somebody raised their hand a few years ago and said, wait a minute, we created a new rule that says that every emoji representing a person has to be genderless, where the gender is something you add with a modifier after that. So are we or are we not breaking our own rule by having a gendered pregnant person emoji, and the you can see all the files that were created about this, the arguments that were made about this to and fro before it came down to, okay, we feel as though just simply to maintain, not necessarily because it's progressive, but simply to maintain our bureaucracy, because if we take out one of these little bricks, the entire thing is going to collapse around us. For bureaucratic reasons, people have this going. On the flip side of this, there is nothing that makes such I really think that 500 years from now, if sociologists want to understand the evolution of the world human culture, a big data bank is going to be the way that emojis have been transformed over the years. Like, why is it that a syringe emoji used to be filled with red because it used to indicate like drawing blood. Now it's clear because now it's about like immunology and immunizing yourself. And you can see all these things where it was there was discussions about how, well, we need this emoji because in this part of the world there is a culture in which this ginger root is actually very, very important and actually part of world culture. And here are reasons why the gun became a squirt gun. Here's the reason why. Exactly. It really is us leaving breadcrumbs in the most unique way and subtle way of here is how we are talking about ourselves, because emojis are really one of the very, very few, maybe even the only successful international language, where if I send you a sequence of 4 emojis, doesn't matter where you're from, supposedly, that doesn't matter what your cultural background is, what language you speak natively, you should be able to understand what I said at the other side, and it's guaranteed that it will be represented accurately on the other end of it. So I love every time there's an update to emojis, I'm all in, all the way up to my elbows. It's great.
I like that. That sounds like the plot of a remake of The Manchurian Candidate. Andy sent a sequence of 4 emoji, and now must kill this senator.
It triggers, yes. So here's some of the new emojis you'll see in 16.4 later this spring. There's a moose, there's a donkey, there's angel's wings, there's a crow, there's a duck, there's a jellyfish.
It's a goose, please. A goose, Leo.
A goose.
Come now.
You're right. It's not a
terrible
duck.
goose.
It's a goose. It's a goose. Hyacinth, ginger, snap peas, a fan, a hair comb. It's really an Afro pick, I think. Maracas, and a wooden flute. Although, just as you say, these things can change. These are the images from 16.4. But that's a beta, and they change. In fact, this is this article from Emojipedia shows how in 2012 the changes between beta 12.1, beta 2, and the final 12.1 release of the bagel, before no schmear, after schmear.
People were so angry about that bagel, and I can't disagree with them.
It
that
really
bagel
looks
on the
dry.
Left, it looks gross.
It looks dry. It doesn't look good. I can also understand, the anger about the peach emoji. In the original beta 2, it was very, how shall we describe that? Almost anatomical.
But toxical.
But toxical. Didn't take long for Apple to replace it with something that doesn't look like a peach, but at least doesn't look like a butt. So that's what happens.
Do you honestly think that would the next stage of our positive evolution being, you know what, enough of the eggplant emoji, we're going to give you the real thing in an emoji. We're going to give you we're also going to give you an actual butt. If you don't want to use it, that's totally up to you.
Human anatomy. They put a hand. Why not just go all the way? Why are we discriminating?
We know you're going to pick one anyway. Why not we just,
It's a little more whimsical to have an eggplant. I'll be honest.
I think you're going to run afoul of that thing, the Apple system that scans for possibly harmful
CSAM. The CSAM. They have officially abandoned that CSAM scanning.
Well, no, but for texting, for parental controls, there is
the
one
parental
for pictures.
One now. It's now out.
So you might run
countries,
rent
other nations. That. Yeah. I always, it's funny because of all the things we talk about, many of which have great import, emojis always get the most attention. People really, that's a meat and potatoes issue. That's what I'm saying.
Damn it, the cheese goes below the patty in the burger, not above the patty in the burger.
Really, below?
I demand restitution.
Are you crazy? Car keys is an Apple technology that's been around for a while, but one BMW model was the only one. Apple this week launched the new car key test app for iPhone. As 9 to 5 Mac says, as adoption lags. No, you can get the app. Good luck getting a car that supports it.
It's for the developers. It's for the people trying to make car
Test
keys.
your car keys.
I don't know that this is gonna change anything. It looks like it was probably something that was already being
it was
provided.
I'm sure
now it's just on the App Store.
Yeah, makes it easier. So many people, Apple says, were asking that we decided just to make it available to all of you. I don't know. I have a Ford Mustang Mach-E that has unlock via a Ford app, and it only works about half the time. And I got to tell you, in fact, I was stuck outside Alex's studio. I didn't tell you this, Alex, because my car wouldn't let me in. Because I had the app and I was pressing the button and all that stuff. I got the horn to go off about 12 times. Did you hear a car alarm going off? That was me.
I did.
A bunch of times. I called Lisa. I said, I might be stuck in Alex's studio for the next day or so till I can get, finally, because I didn't bring the keys. I had the phone unlock. Now I bring my keys with me at all times because I don't trust the darn thing. I'm sure Apple's would work better. In fact, the last time I brought my car in to the dealer to get a software update, without bidding, they gave me a second key fob. They only give you one key fob because they say, well, you don't need a key fob. All your phones work as keys. No, they don't. So I noticed that they're now giving all the owners extra key fobs because they should have.
That's nice. I accidentally took my car keys with me when I left the house over the weekend, and my wife had to go somewhere with the car. And it's like, oh, I do have an extra one, but it's kind of broken. But turned out to work well enough that she could take the car.
It's called PAC, phone as a key. That's what Ford calls it. Do not recommend. 0 out of 5 stars. All right. I think that's everything. Was there anything else I missed? There's some non-Apple. There's a lot of non-Apple news. We'll cover that on Twit on Sunday and Tech News Weekly on Thursday and tomorrow on Twig. In fact, tomorrow on Twig, I'm trying to get Kathy Gellis. She wrote Tech Dirt's amicus brief for Gonzalez versus Google, and this is her business. I'm be very curious what she thinks about the oral arguments today. So I will update you on that, but I'm hoping we can get her on for tomorrow.
I do think it's fun that they've sealed Apple One's auction for almost $64,000.
I forgot that one. Holy cow. This boy, Scott Bourne's just got to be burned because he bought how many original iPhones? He bought a bunch of them. If he just put one aside, it would have.
Is it brand new? Was it in a really good?
Look at this, sealed in the cellophane like that. Do they still use cellophane? I don't know. In the plastic. Yeah, it sold for a record-breaking
$63,356.
Holy cow!
Close to double what an August auction for another sealed iPhone,
which with inflation was about $20 more expensive than what it used to cost when you buy it new.
There you go.
Karen Green. She was on the Treasure Hunt Tuesday segment of a TV show called Doctor and the Diva a few years ago. She brought it with her, and they estimated at the time that it was worth about $5,000, which is still, 10 times the retail price. But she ended up getting 100 times the retail price, which is pretty good.
It's amazing, especially for people like in our businesses, because oftentimes like we get sent something for review or something and we move or something, or it gets lost in the office. And then like 8 years later, it's like, oh, geez, here's a useless iPhone 1. Like, hey, I think there are Apple stickers there. You tear it apart just to get the stickers and you don't care. And then, I just took $60,000. I just took the down payment off a house off of this phone. It does beggar the imagination on how, like especially an iPhone 1, which were kind of rare and they were kind of expensive, particularly at the original like retail at that point, that someone bought it and it just stayed in shrink wrap. Whether it must have been like unsold stock, or was it?
You really wonder where it came
for someone
from.
you broke up with. Yeah.
Starting bid was $2,500. There were 27 total bids. The last bid, as you say, $63,000. Wow. I wonder what the person who spent that much money for it is going to do with it.
There are people out there. Once you have that kind of money, where money is no object anymore.
Yeah.
Like maybe I bet that this is someone who has one of every Apple product still in, or they have one of Apple of any. They completed their Apple collection in Mint a long time ago, and now either they stop collecting, or every time they have an opportunity to buy something that is new in package, like new old stock, they have to have it. And all you need is two people, as that so-called Leonardo da Vinci portrait of Jesus pointed out. All I need are two people who will not be stopped, and these things go insane. I still have a copy of Through the Looking Glass. Like, remember the first Mac game, still in shrink wrap in my office somewhere. Only because I went to some sort of clearance sale of going out of business sale at a computer store in 1988, and they had a whole box of them, a whole case of them for $1 each. I just bought 5 of them, and now I'm it's just, I've never cracked the seal because I already have another one that's open, and now I'm oh geez, maybe I wasn't so foolish to not save for my future anyway. Maybe all I need to do was hold on to this one copy of Through the Looking Glass.
I love worth at least $5 now, Andy.
I love
there you go. I'll get that $1 back and then some.
The catalog pros accompanying the iPhone. We are pleased to present an iconic, factory-sealed first-release iPhone in outstanding condition. Almost 16 years old, the phone presents magnificently, showcasing sharp corners, front and back, rich color, and case-fresh features. The labels on the reverse are pristine beneath the seal, and shelfware is minimal. This is the first original iPhone in acceptable condition to hit the auction block since the record-breaking sale in October. A truly remarkable piece with great appeal to both collectors and investors alike. That's a little hint, by the way, to the other kind of person who might have bought this, which is somebody who saw, hey, it was $39,000 last year.
Yeah, exactly.
$63,000 this year. I wonder it'll be next year. Let's try.
That's what auctions do. They get the $30,000 auction price hits the press, and then you realize that, don't I have one of those back in somewhere?
Or it's some other guy who opened it up and said it's only got 8 gigs of storage.
Yeah.
Oh,
Goodwill Industries, $8. And someone bought it just because they know that there's an old timey dock cable attached to it, and it's the cheapest original Apple dock cable.
$63,000, but I got the cable, man. I got the cable. Yeah. Did it come with a 30-pin? Cable?
It came with a dock.
In a dock?
It came with a dock. Yeah.
Wow.
I got mine around somewhere, but
I have mine around, but I don't know if
not
it's the dock
shrink wrap.
still. No, it's not.
Like an idiot, I actually used it as a phone because I couldn't afford to.
Lightly used, Leo's iPhone original is only slightly scratched and a slight patina.
We believe that is his
jelly.
own earwax in the ear cup display. Provenance. From the collection.
Let's take a little break. When we come back, I would like to get some picks of the week from all three of you. Dan Moore, it's great to have you filling in for Jason Snell. Perfect replacement. 7 months old, your little guy or gal is. That's. Are you having fun?
Fast.
Are you having fun?
Yes, tremendous amounts of fun. It's a good age. It's a good age. Lots of laughs, lots of smiles.
So he's smiling and sitting up. He's not walking though.
No, not
crawling?
moving yet.
He's not even crawling
yet.
No.
Wants to crawl badly.
Yeah.
Swims in place on the floor.
Yeah.
And
That'll happen
as soon as he
soon.
figures that last part out, it's going to be a batten down the hatches situation over
We
here.
used to do, and this is 30 years ago, so times have changed, but we used to do something called tummy time, where you'd put the kid on their tummy and let them do that because that's how they get to crawling. But
they got to build the muscles. Yeah.
It felt cruel. It was when you put a turtle on its back, it just seemed mean. But Jennifer said no, and you know what? Abby's 30 years old now, and she can still walk, so it's good. It's good.
Crawl too,
and
even
crawl.
probably. So
She's
you got
very good at
you got them
crawling.
all.
Yeah. Actually, after crawling comes scooting. After scooting. Comes pulling things off the wall, so you want to really make sure you've got it.
We secure everything.
Yeah, childproofing now. Our show today brought to you by 8 Sleep. Now, I have to say, if I had had an 8 Sleep when Henry and Abby were little, I would have definitely put them in the bed there, and they'd be all cozy and comfy. It would have been a great way to get them to sleep. But you know what? It's a great way to get yourself to sleep. Good sleep is everything. It's the ultimate game changer. Nature's gentle nurse. And if I told you there was a thing you could get that would improve the quality of your sleep that would give you a great feeling in the morning when you got up, that would help you fall asleep faster, that would keep you from waking up in the middle of the night, I think you'd pay almost anything for that. Almost $63,000 for that. But this is not nearly so expensive. It's the 8 Sleep Pod cover. They make mattresses or covers. We liked our mattress, so we got the cover. We've had it for about a year now. And I tell you what, it is awesome. And I sleep so much better. If you struggle to fall asleep, if you waking up in the middle of the night, the worst thing, waking up all sweaty, just sweating in the middle. Night sweats are horrible. 8 Sleep is the solution. The cover fits on any mattress. You can adjust the temperature of your sleeping environment. It actually senses the room temperature, your temperature, how much you're tossing and turning, whether your wakefulness, your sleep state, whether you're a deep sleep or REM sleep or light sleep. And it features a dual zone temperature control, one for each of you. So you and your partner can set both sides of the bed, and it goes down to as low as 55 degrees. That's pretty chilly, or as hot as 110 degrees. Now, in this, in the wintertime, it's great to get nice and warm. In fact, that's how I said it. It's nice and cozy. But what happens is, over time, the autopilot in the 8 Sleep observes your movements and stuff and kind of eases you into a deeper and deeper sleep by slowly cooling down. That's how the body works, it turns out. You never wake up with night sweats. You're always comfortable, but you get more deep sleep. I added a half an hour of deep sleep every night when I started using the 8 Sleep. That is huge. That is a 50% for me, 50% increase in deep sleep. That means reduced risk of heart disease, lower blood pressure, reduced risk of Alzheimer's, and just waking up in the morning feeling really great. In the summertime, when it got hot this past summer, turning it down to 55 degrees, you get in bed and you go, well, this is like a spa. I'm feeling great. This is so comfy. And it automatically adjusts as the room temperature changes. One of the benefits, we don't have to turn on the heat at night in the winter or the air conditioning in the summer. I know it's a very hot summer right now in Australia. You will love this to cool you off. And it improves your sleep. Best-in-class temperature regulation. Those sensors also track your health and sleep metrics. You don't have to wear any rings or watches or anything like that. It just does it automatically. Better sleep. It's a health habit you will love sticking to night after night. Wake up fully energized with the pod cover so you can tackle whatever life throws at you. We love our pod cover. And everybody I talk to who gets one says the same thing. Mike has got one now. Ant has one now. Kevin Rose was the first guy to introduce me to this, actually. 8sleep.com/twit. 8sleep.com/twit. Save $150 at checkout on the pod cover. 8 Sleep currently ships within the U.S., Canada, the UK, select countries in the EU, and yeah, you can get it in Australia. If you're suffering with hot nights, get it. 8sleep.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting the show. We bought it before they were a sponsor, and we just love it. We just love it. We've had it for more than a year. 8sleep.com/twit. I think it's a good time for your picks of the week. I'm just going to mention in passing, I don't necessarily recommend this brand or anything, but boy, hard drives have gotten cheap. If you need a hard drive for your time machine or your backup, I wouldn't recommend it as running the operating system on it, but just for backups or time machines, look at this Western Digital 4 terabyte for $77. Can you believe? I mean,
that's great for offsite backups. Make a backup and then give it to your
work.
Mom and dad.
Yeah.
Give it to a friend. So if God forbid if you get burgled or if there's a fire, you still have a complete offsite backup. That's what those those pocket drives, they tend to get destroyed really easily. But I'm going to make this backup, then I'm going to
I don't travel with it.
Lock it into a safe.
Yeah. This one has password protection, so I guess if you did, you wouldn't have to worry about it. But I just think the idea of having Time Machine running, I actually do have, in fact, a Seagate with a 4 terabyte Seagate running Time Machine on my studio at home, and
I did, but mine died.
Oh,
so,
there it is. That's the one I have.
Other backup. Well, yeah, I've been trying to crack it open to see if I can actually get the drive out because it's just not. I think it's just totally.
They're not meant for long, heavy duty. No. That's a laptop drive, obviously, in there. Yeah. It's good. It's good. They're $77, I guess.
Right. I mean,
there's always like the price per gig we get a lot of internal drives that we use to back up things. So we just have like a little, what we call toasters, and we just drop the raw drives in.
Right.
Yep.
And right now, I think that the corner of the hockey stick right now, I think is about 12 terabytes, where the cost per gig is really low. And then it skyrockets up, but like 12 terabytes is like $150 or $170 or something like that.
Amazing.
It's incredible. And so you have two of those, and then you back them up, and but you can put a lot on them.
Always thinking back to my Mac LC's 40 megabyte hard drive in 1991.
Can you imagine? I mean, look how far we've come. It's really incredible. Yeah, this is USB 1.1. It's slow, but still the price. I mean, $77 for 4 terabytes. Get it for your time machine. Alex Lindsay, I'm sure, has something a little more high tech for us. What's your pick of the week, Alex?
It's high tech, but it's free. It's free. And I got a free one here for you today. We had a great morning here on office hours where we had the guys from Ross come in and show dashboard. So Ross makes this thing called dashboard. Ross makes switchers and AR tracking and lots of other things. And they have this control surface. It's kind of like a Crestron, except that it's a lot more flexible and a lot less expensive. So you can run it on Mac, PC, I think Linux, So there is a Mac version. It's cross-platform. It's free. And basically what you can do is build entire interfaces. So those interfaces can be, you can just decide, I want buttons here and I just want to tap those things there. And it will, you can have video coming into it. You can have, so you could say, I want an NDI window right here. And it's just going to have that window there. And then you have little buttons below it to cut or to do whatever else you want to do. And they made it free a long time ago. And so they developed these things. And so a lot of folks, there's a bunch of folks in our group that use the Ross at some pretty high level events, and so we asked them to come on, and we got a whole hour this morning where they kind of walked us through it. But basically, it basically you can customize it, you can build it. It's TCP, but you can build parsers, so you can go to OSC or to specific cameras or to other things there that are put together there, and so it's really fascinating. You can see
Is it JavaScript?
It is. It is. It's all based on that. So if you know how to write that, you can build your own little nodes and other things that you want to do. And so it's very, very flexible. It already has a lot of stuff kind of built into it. Of course, if you have Ross hardware, it'll just drag and drop. But you can, it can be used with many different pieces of hardware. It's nice
that they give that away because, I mean, they could try to keep a lid on it. I mean.
But I think it makes it's the interoperability makes it really easy for them that other people might use it and put it together. So it's anyway, it's a really cool. I hadn't really seen it in detail until this morning, and I was super impressed. So anyway, but it's available. It's cross-platform, and it's pretty cool, and it's free.
And if you go to officehours.global, you can
see an hour of us talking to them about it.
See an hour of it from today's show. Office Hours is a great way to learn about all kinds of things, a lot of production stuff, but even, I don't know, everything else, cooking and all kinds of crazy stuff. MIDI.
But it's cooking, but with lots of cameras.
Burnout recovery. Yeah. Cooking with lots of cameras. They did a couple of great days on the Super Bowl ads and graphics. That was really, really cool. And I can't wait to watch this Focus on Live Sports behind the scenes. I guess somebody at Office
One of
Hours
our members
runs a truck, huh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and
nice.
so we got to see kind of behind the scenes of them actually putting it together. So yeah,
that's so
really,
cool.
really
that was
fun.
right before the Super Bowl. Well, officehours.global, that's the place to go. And of course, if you want to hire Mr. Lindsay, 090.media, because he'd be the best guy to run your next on internet event. Mr. Andy Ihnatko, WGBH in Boston. What do you got for us?
My pick is an app that I didn't think I needed, but it turns out that I did. It's Duet Display, which a lot of you have probably heard of. It's this app that's been around for a number of years that lets you use your iPad or even your whole Mac as an external display for an existing Mac. And so a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, look who hasn't heard of Sidecar. It's a free feature built into the OS. Yeah, I know. And that's why I didn't think I needed Duet Display. The problem with me is that Sidecar, oh my goodness, it's not reliable enough for me. The number of times where I've been like in the middle of a podcast and I've got Sidecar on my iPad Pro, basically to be, here's the recording controller for audio hijack, whatever. And I'm talking, and then suddenly screens go blank. The iPad bounces back into iOS, and all my windows now rearrange themselves. And I can't figure out exactly why that happens. It doesn't always happen, but it happens enough that I just don't trust it anymore. So I decided to give Duet Display a try, and that thing has been absolutely rock solid for me. It has never once disconnected from the iPad, except for when I actually told it to, which is pretty much the name of the game here. It's also way more flexible in the things that it can do. It really is attacking. It's not a feature. It is an entire solution to, I've got this other device with an awesome display on it. I want to use that display as a screen rather than having it be in a drawer someplace. Can you help me Duet Display? So not only will it work with my iPad Pro's display, but it will also work with my phone display, my Android phone display, Windows machines. I've got an old 2012 22-inch iMac. I can use that, which is basically not good for anything for me at this point, but I can use that as an external display. Obviously, if you have a machine that's limited, like an M1 MacBook or an M1 Mac Mini that can only use like 2 displays at once, that will give you a third display for free. It works on Macs that where Sidecar doesn't work. Duet Display works really, really well, I think optimally on Apple Silicon Macs. It does work on my ancient 10-year-old Intel Mac Mini, but that's slow enough that when I move the mouse from my main real DisplayPort display into the Duet Display, there's enough of a lag that I basically have to take it on faith that I've moved it into the Duet Display, and then just sort of be patient for 10 seconds while the mouse pointer sort of catches up with it, and then it's live. So I wouldn't use it for a super old Macs like that. But the fact is that with this one fee, I can use it on up to 3 different Macs that I own. And we've discussed this a couple of times where the odd thing is that for people like me who have an iPad Pro and a bunch of Macs, the iPad Pro has by far the highest quality display of any computer, or actually of any screen inside my house. So what I find I've been using, because the cheapest annual fee for this doesn't support Apple Pencil as an input device, only supports it for gestures, like touch, tap, that sort of stuff. But if you buy it for $35 a year, it will work like a real stylus. And so when I'm editing photos, I will have on my M1 MacBook, I will use the internal display of the M1 MacBook just for palettes and controls, and I will have the photo like actually in my hands with my Apple Pencil and being able to edit directly on it with doing dodging and burning and masking. It really delivers value for money. $35 a year, so you can't own it outright. But I do find that the fact that it is a generalized solution that will give you ideas for other ways you can use it. Like, I don't know, the next time I'm going to be traveling, I'll have to do like a live stream or video chat, like in a hotel room. But I'm already looking forward to the idea of, wouldn't it be interesting to, I've always had this idea of instead of having the chat window as a window that's sort of pinned to the top of my screen and set to always be on top, what if I had like my tiny little phone screen and then I basically had like my webcam on top of that. And so basically I have this as a full screen window just for the chat. So the only thing that's inside here is the people that I'm talking to. And I have the full real estate of my MacBook for other things. I can easily play with that. I can easily do that. It's a generalized solution. So it delivers a lot of value for money. I'm very happy with it. I've been using it for a few weeks now. And that means that the one thing that is kind of holding me back with my M1 powered MacBook here is that I really do like to have multiple displays. That's how I really am in a day-long focus mode. And with this, plus with the external display I've got plugged into it, that's 2 displays, then technically a third display because I've got it's not Sidecar, but the other feature that they have where you can basically use the keyboard and mouse on your Mac on your control. Thank you very much. That's display number 3. And then I can have my iMac as display number 4 via Duet Display. This one thing that can basically only handle one external display can now give me my wall of sound, my NORAD at the end of the War Games movie sort of workspace, which is making me very, very happy. $35 a year. I recommend it pretty highly.
Very nice. Very nice. Mr. Dan Oh, by the way, Andy, when are you going to be on WGBH next?
I'm going to be on actually tomorrow, Thursday at 12:30. I'm going to be in studio, not at the
tomorrow
library,
or Thursday. Which?
I'm sorry, Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday. I'm sorry, my I'm in independent worker mode. I don't know what day it is. But yes, Thursday at 12:30. Go to wgbhnews.org to listen to it live or later.
I was confused. Dan Morin, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Do you have a pick of the week?
I do. You mentioned sleeping and things that help you sleep earlier, and I have a 7-month-old. So let me talk about a thing that helps multiple people in my house sleep. It's called the Hatch Rest. It is a sound machine, but it's a smart sound machine, which of course is what our sound machines need. We have this in my kids' room. It is a combination nightlight and white noise machine, but it has a bunch of extra cool features, so you can use a variety of different sounds that are built in, and it's a total light changing nightlight, so you can set it to any color basically. There's an app that you use for control. The version I have is Bluetooth. I gather there is a second generation model that now is over Wi-Fi, but you can preset different things to a certain color light or a certain setting or volume of sound. So for example, when our kids go to sleep, we have a very low red light that has white noise on. So if we need to go in, we can do it without losing our dark vision. And then when we get them up in the morning, it plays some birds chirping, has a nice yellow light. There's a light for naps, all this stuff. And we haven't quite gotten to this point yet, but it also lets you program a schedule in so that it automatically shifts to certain presets at certain times of day. So you can have that great feature that I know a lot of my friends with older kids have, where it's it's red when you can't get up yet, and then it turns green when it's okay, you can leave your room now. Red light, green light. You really need that, because I'm looking forward to that as an opportunity to be please let us sleep. So it's helped. I think it's really genuinely helped our kids sleep better. And when our kid sleeps better, we sleep better, which is the best part of all, because then we're less burned out when it comes to do the fun things. So I really dig this thing.
You got such great technology now. I tell you.
Used to be in your day, you just had to stand over the crib going, shh.
I did.
For 8 hours, and that's rough.
Rock-a-bye, baby. Oh, my God. Yeah, this looks cool. $70 for Rest or the new Rest 2. And there's adult versions as well from Hatch.com.
Yeah, so I like sleeping with a little white noise myself. I know with these, I just run a fan, but now I'm envious. My kids got better tech than me, which is, I think, just getting me ready. It's always going to be the case, right?
There's a building in town that is a big building filled with two kinds of tenants. Half of them are psychotherapists and half of them are massage therapists. And every single one of them has a white noise machine outside the door. So the whole building is... It's the weirdest...
You walk in, you fall right asleep.
It is.
It's
so strange. Yeah. I sometimes go in there just to soothe myself. It's very, very nice. Dan, I really appreciate you taking the time with us. Dan's books are out, as he said, published by Angry Robot, the Galactic Cold War series. Is it concludes with the Bay Area agenda, or you got more?
Well, that's the first one, actually. I've got this is the Nova incident is the most recent. See, I was told to bring my copy. Yeah, that's the most recent. Not concluded. Not concluded yet. There may be more to come. Don't have anything. I can't confirm anything, but there might be more to come. So keep reading. Keep buying the books. Yeah. The more people buy them, the easier it is for me to tell the publisher and more. So that's the best part.
Start with the Bay Area.
I read the first two, loved them. Haven't read the third one yet.
Then read the
I'm not saving it for things I haven't got around to.
And then the Nova incident. If you had thought ahead, you would have put these in alphabetical order. But okay, no problem.
I know people get so critical about this. That's fine. Whatever.
Thanks, Dan. So great to have you on. I appreciate it. 6colors.com and Macworld Magazine, and of course the Incomparable. You saw that Zeppelin floating behind him. His Mastodon instance is zeppelin.flights at dmorin, zeppelin.flights. I am so jealous that Jason got Zeppelin flights.
There was not weirdly a lot of clamoring for it, but he was on top of it.
No, he got it. He was in there. In fact, I think it stimulated a fairly long conversation on MacBreak, or maybe it was on Twit, about Zeppelins and dirigibles and fixed rigid thing balloons.
Rigid airships.
Airships. And I got somebody joined our forums who is the pilot of the Goodyear blimp. And I said, because he said, he was talking about what we said. And he said, yeah, I know a little bit about this because I fly them. I said, you do that for a day job? He said, yeah, for a little company called Goodyear. You might have heard of. And I said, if you're ever in town, raising my hand. And you know what? Since Jason's in the same area, if I get to go, we'll bring Jason. And then Zeppelin.flights will take flight.
Oh, Andy and I need to find the Hood Blimp guy. Is there still the Hood Blimp still around here?
Hood?
I used to be.
HP Hood, the dairy company?
The dairy company, yeah.
Every time I'm in town, I know if there's a Red Sox game, if I see the Hood Blimp, like
up there.
over Kenmore Square.
You know, it turns out there's quite a few jobs out there piloting blimps. There it is.
Who knew?
The Hood Blimp. It's in /I/Baston.
Just be careful of any aircraft fire. Things are tense right now.
Yeah, right.
It's weird out there right now.
Do not drive a blimp these days. Hey, everybody, it's Leo Laporte, the founder and host of many of the Twit podcasts. I don't normally talk to you about advertising, but I want to take a moment to do that right now. Our mission statement at Twit: we're dedicated to building a highly engaged community of tech enthusiasts, that's our audience, and you, I guess, since you're listening, by offering them the knowledge they need to understand and use technology in today's world. To do that, we also create partnerships with trusted brands and make important introductions between them and our audience. It's how we finance our podcasts, but it's also, and our audience tells us this all the time, a part of the service we offer. It's a valued bit of information for our audience members. They want to know about great brands like yours. So can we help you by introducing you to our highly qualified audience? And boy, you get a lot with advertising on the Twit podcasts. Partnering with Twit means you're going to get, if I may say so humbly, the gold standard in podcast advertising. And we throw in a lot of valuable services. You get a full service continuity team supporting everything from copywriting to graphic design. I don't think anybody else does this or does this as well as we do. You get ads that are embedded in our content that are unique every time. I read them, our hosts read them. We always over-deliver on impressions. And frankly, we're here to talk about your product. So we really give our listeners a great introduction to what you offer. We've got onboarding services, ad tech with pod sites, that's free for direct clients. We give you a lot of reporting so you know who saw your advertisement. You'll even know how many responded by going to your website. We'll also give you courtesy commercials that you can share across social media and landing pages. We think these are really valuable. People like me and our other hosts talking about your product sincerely and informationally. Those are incredibly valuable. You also get other free goodies, mentions in our weekly newsletter that's sent out to thousands of fans. We give bonus ads to people who buy a significant amount of advertising. You'll get social media promotion too. But let me tell you, we are looking for an advertising partner that's going to be with us long term. Visit twit.tv/advertise. Check out our partner testimonials. Tim Broom, founder of IT Pro TV. They started IT Pro TV in 2013, immediately started advertising with us, and grew that company to a really amazing success. Hundreds of thousands of ongoing customers. They've been on our network for more than 10 years. And they say, and I'll quote Tim, "We would not be where we are today without the Twit network." That's just one example. Mark McCrary, who's the CEO of Authentic, he was actually one of the first people to buy ads on our network. He's been with us for 16 years. He said, and I'm quoting, "The feedback from many advertisers over those 16 years across a range of product categories is that if ads and podcasts are going to work for a brand, they're going to work on Twitch shows." I'm proud to say that the ads we do over-deliver. They work really well because they're honest. They have integrity. Our audience trusts us, and we say, this is a great product. They believe it. They listen. Our listeners are highly intelligent. They're heavily engaged. They're tech-savvy. They're dedicated to our network. And that's partly because we only work with high-integrity partners that we have thoroughly and personally vetted. I approve every single advertiser on the network. If you're ready to elevate your brand and you've got a great product, I want you to reach out to us. advertise at twit.tv. So I want you to break out of the advertising norm, grow your brand with host-read authentic ads on twit.tv. Visit twit.tv/advertise for more details or email us advertise@twit.tv if you're ready to launch your campaign now. All right. Thank you, Andy and Anko. We'll look for you on Thursday on WGBH in Boston. Mr. Alex Lindsay, we'll see you at officehours.global. We'll see all of you right back here Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC for MacBreak Weekly. If you can't make the live show, don't worry. You can always download a copy from our website, twit.tv/MBW. You can also watch on YouTube. There's a MacBreak Weekly channel there. Or just, I think the best thing to do is subscribe using a podcast client, Pocket Casts, Overcast. Oh, speaking of Overcast, I just remembered who's going to be on next week. Oh, never mind. Marco Arment joins us next week. That'll be a lot of fun. So get Marco's app, download Overcast, and then subscribe. And that way you'll get it the minute it's available.
In my defense, he's very much the Liza of Mac development.
Liza.
Like anybody's ever said that before.
I don't know what that means.
Liza
Minnelli? Okay. Nowadays, with all the AI, if you say Eliza, that's different, right? We don't mean that. All right.
What do you mean when you say Liza with a Z?
There's the Goodyear blimp flying somewhere on Twitter, apparently. Actually, the Goodyear blimp's tweet says, "Don't shoot." Okay. What else? Oh, I was going to mention, if you are a member of Club Twit, you get a very special edition of this show, ad-free. You also get ad-free versions of all of our shows. You also get Micah Sargent's Hands on Macintosh. That's a club-only exclusive right now. That's where we launch new shows. We also have Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott and the Untitled Linux Show and Stacey's Book Club and a lot more special events in there. That Discord is really fun, too. You'll get access to the Club Twit Discord, plus the Twit Plus feed with content you don't get anywhere else, including conversations before and after shows, things like that. We invite you to join the club. It's merely $7 a month, $84 a year. There's also a corporate membership. In fact, we just got a new corporate member, and I want to welcome them to the club. It's great to have you. twit.tv/clubtwit if you want to join in the fun. And I know a lot of people join just to get the ad-free versions of the shows or just to support us. But I have to say, if you haven't tried the Discord, get on in there because there's a lot of great stuff. A lot of great animated GIFs going on. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Get back to work, though, because break time is over. We'll see you next time with Marco Arment. Bye-bye.
Hey, I know you're super busy, so I won't keep you long, but I wanted to tell you about a show here on the Twit network called Tech News Weekly. You are a busy person, and during your week, you may want to learn about all the tech news that's fit to, say, not print, here on Twit. It's Tech News Weekly. Me, Micah Sargent, my co-host, Jason Howell. We talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news, and we love the opportunity to get to share those stories with you and let the people who wrote them or broke them share them as well. So I hope you check it out every Thursday right here on Twit.